sitting out here enjoying this weather, and I thought, why not do a lecture while I'm sitting out here and enjoying my coffee at Dunkin' Donuts. So before I get started, I just want to take a moment to thank all of my supporters and everyone for supporting my channel. So with that being said, let's get on down to today's very important lecture, which is, should you go to college or not? That is a very loaded question, and I've been really wanting to do a lecture on this for a while now, because we all are aware, the price now to go to colleges is astronomical. You got a lot of these young people coming out of college, in $80 and $90 and $100,000 in school loan debt, and it's a huge amount of money behind that degree. Most people, unless they just are wealthy, they don't have to worry about getting federal loans and student loans and etc. But most regular folks like you and I, in terms of going to college, that requires some kind of student loan. So I'm going to present this information from all perspectives. First of all, I can remember when I was in the military, I was very young. This was before I went to college. And I remember when I got out, I met this nurse, and I was working a job when I got out of the military, and as simultaneously as I was going to school under my VA benefits. And one of the things the nurse told me was, if you're going to do something professional-wise, and I always remember this, she stated, get certified or licensed in something. And that always stuck with me. All my life, that stuck with me. And understand, world, that there's many different types of certifications and licensure based on what your profession is. Some certification and licensures also require having a degree in addition to going after that license. And I'm going to give you a prime example. I'm going to use myself as an example. Everybody's aware I retired September 2023. I retired from as a licensed clinical addiction specialist. I worked in the field of addiction for well over 23 plus years, holding all of my credentials in the field of addiction. And in order to be licensed in a clinical profession, you don't just have to have that license. With that, you also have to have a master's degree. So you're talking about going to school to get a bachelor's, you're talking about going to school postgraduate to get a master's, and then going through all of the credentialing process to be licensed within your profession. There are many types of professions that also requires a academic degree in addition to that licensure, like a medical doctor, such as a attorney, such as nurses, such as clinical social workers, addiction counselors, master level addiction counselors. With that licensure, understand you got to also have a master's degree or either a bachelor's degree in addition to your license. So I say that to say, but you step away licensed within your profession. Restriction of a profession requires licensure or certification. There's many types of licensure and certification where you just go through that particular training in that school to get that certification or license, rather it's a cosmetologist, rather it's a plumber, rather it's an electrician, auto mechanic. So yeah, they have certification and licensure also, but you don't necessarily need to have a associate's degree, a bachelor's degree, or a master's degree, or PhD to go through that specific training to get that credential. So bottom line, you're certified or licensed in a profession, which is always good. But if you got a certification in a license in a profession where you also had to go to school to get it, then you're talking about school debt. And one of the things I did when I was in college is I always worked jobs simultaneously while I was going to school, so I wouldn't walk away with too big of a financial burden. However, I returned back to school later in life, in my early 40s, to get my master's degree, which consists of a huge federal student loan by the time I got done. So what I did to pay out that federal student loan is, when I entered the clinical world as a licensed clinical addiction expert, I went through the federal loan forgiveness program where I had to work 120 months with a qualified employer to get the remaining balance of my student loan zeroed out, so I wouldn't be in debt for the rest of my life. So I tell folks to say, if you are gonna go to school, rather you go through a certification program to get some type of certification or a license. But if you also plan to go to college, do things like work full time, don't accumulate a whole lot of debt along the way, and enroll in a program where you're going to be entering a profession that is also requires a certification and a license. Because what certification and licensure do when you're in a profession is restrict that profession, or it's a restriction of the profession, meaning if you don't have that certification or license to work in this profession, you're not going to qualify to get the job. You know, in the field of addiction, if you're not licensed or certified, I don't care what your degrees are. If you don't have the licensure or certification to work in that profession, you will not get hired. They're not going to hire you as a nurse, as an RN, if you're not if you don't have the license to go with it. They're not going to hire you as an attorney or a doctor if you don't have the license to go with it, or auto mechanic, or cosmetology, or electrician. You got to have the certification or license if that company, in order for them to hire you. That's real talk. Now, there are many kind of jobs out there where you don't need a certification or a license in order to get that job. But I tell folks, if you're going to go to school, sit down and think real hard on what profession you choose, because I'm telling you, it's when you are credentialed in a profession that gives you more power to get that job versus somebody who does not have that credential. You know, although I'm retired, I'm going to tell you something, I've always known this. In the field of addiction, there's a shortage of licensed people. You know, the substance abuse and drug addiction is out of control globally. And companies and treatment programs and detox facilities, they have to have the credentialed people to provide those clinical services. They got to have the licensed addiction counselors. They got to have the registered nurses. They got to have the medical doctors. They got to have the certified phlebotomists to work in those programs from a legal standpoint to provide service. For real, for real. So there's a shortage of licensed clinical addiction experts, and companies are desperate to get us with those credentials. If I wanted to, I can step back into the work world and name my price, because I'm licensed and credentialed in 3 different states at the master's level. I'm licensed in 3 different states in a profession that ain't going nowhere. The field of addiction, substance abuse, and drug addiction is out of control. People from all areas of life. It's a non-discriminatory disease, for real, for real. And these treatment programs are in desperate need of qualified clinicians to provide these clinical services, qualified licensed clinicians to supervise these counselors. I was a clinical expert as a clinical supervisor. I supervise other licensed people in substance abuse treatment programs. So that supervisor got to be at a high level to do that. And those credentials don't come easy. So I say that to say, if you're thinking about going to school, if you're thinking about going to college, do it in a way where you're selecting a profession that requires also, not just when you get that degree when you graduate, that associate's, that bachelor's, or that master's, or that PhD. Align yourself in a profession that also requires a certification or a license on top of that degree. So what that does is that kind of secures your future career for longevity, people. For real, for real. And this is real talk. I'm always talking to people. I'm talking to people all the time. And now you got folks who got degrees. They got their associates, they got their bachelors, and they got their masters, and they got their PhD, and that's all they have. They have no specialization in anything. They have no certification or licensure in anything, and all they have is a degree. And what that does is that's going to limit their choices. That's going to limit their career choices. That's going to limit their opportunity to make significant money throughout their working history, people. This is real talk. You got folks who've never gone to college, but they're certified and licensed in a profession, so now they're able to make a real good living. Why? Because they've gone through a program on top of sitting for a board. Let me explain to you what certification and licensure also means. That means you've also gone through the training or the academic piece, and then you have sat for a certification or licensure board, and you had to pass that exam, and then you have to do ongoing re-credentialing training every couple of years to renew your credential to remain in the profession, people. Although I'm retired, I still maintain my credentials, meaning I have to have a recertification and renewal training every 2 years to renew my license as a licensed clinical addiction expert in 3 different states, meaning I have to have ongoing training to stay abreast of the field of addiction, people. And I have to pay those renewal fees in addition to ongoing continuing education hours if I want to maintain my credential, even though if I'm retired. I might want to consult and make a truckload of money. In order for a company to hire me as a consultant, I got to show evidence that I have the credential. They ain't going to hire me as a consultant if I don't possess the license as a licensed clinical addiction expert within my profession. So this is real talk. So you have to ask yourself, if college is the direction you're going to take, or going to technical training is the direction you're going to take, but make sure you're also thinking about what particular certification or licensure you may need on top of that degree. Because I have a master's degree. I got 2 master's degrees. I got a bachelor's degree. I got an associate's degree, but I also have 3 licenses as an addiction expert from 3 different states: the state of North Carolina, the state of Georgia, the state of Virginia, as a clinical expert, people. And I'm also licensed at the national level. So that means I can go anywhere in the nation and function as a licensed clinical addiction expert and get paid for real, for real. So share this information. That's all I have. Simplify, simple fidelis, and I'm going to leave you in the care of your own conscience. Have a great day.